On this Sunday night, trade turmoil. The Prime Minister pitches new alliances in Asia after President Trump terminated talks and raised tariffs.
This is interference in U.S. sovereign matters.
The latest fallout from Ontario's anti-tariff ad campaign. French police arrest suspects accused of looting the Louvre. But have they recovered the crown jewels? Teacher strike showdown. The Alberta Premier's plan to force educators back to school. Plus, swing and a miss.
It's baseball, and you got to kind of react in real time.
The Blue Jays look to bounce back in Game 3.
Global National. Reporting tonight, Jeff Semple.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. Prime Minister Mark Carney is trying to reassure Canadians after U.S. President Donald Trump threatened to raise tariffs on Canada by another 10%. Speaking at the ASEAN Leaders Summit in Malaysia, Carney said he is ready to resume trade talks with the U.S. while also focusing on expanding trade ties across Asia. As Mackenzie Gray reports, the Prime Minister also appeared to send a message to Ontario's Premier.
It's not the YMCA, but Donald Trump seemed to love his welcome to Malaysia. The jet lag not affecting the president after he blasted Canada on social media at 4:30 a.m. local time.
When someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports.
Still mad about the Ontario government ad that's been running during the World Series that, despite Trump's protests, accurately quotes Ronald Reagan's hatred of tariffs. Because of their serious misrepresentation of the facts and hostile act, the president said, I'm increasing the tariff on Canada by 10% over and above what they're paying now.
The Premier of Ontario seems to have come off the rails a little. He has taken the ads down, but what's the purpose of that other than to try to sway U.S. public opinion?
Mark Carney not mentioning the new tariff threat when he gave a statement to reporters, instead repeating what he'd said after Trump ended trade talks on Thursday.
The government of Canada stands ready to build on the progress that we had been making in our negotiations, our discussions with our American counterparts.
What a new 10% tariff increase actually looks like isn't clear. The White House has not given Global News or the Canadian government any details on what goods are impacted and when the new tariff could come into force. Despite Carney and Trump both being special guests at the ASEAN Summit of Southeastern Asian countries, the pair haven't met yet or even spoken since trade talks were called off, thanks to Doug Ford's ad, which the Prime Minister took a subtle jab at.
It is the sole responsibility of the government of Canada to have those discussions with the United States, and it's the best way forward.
Handshake? Yep. Oh, the handshake. Yes, that makes it official.
Carney met with the Filipino, Laotian, and Vietnamese leaders as Canada tries to negotiate a free trade deal with the South Asian bloc in a bid to try and diversify Canadian trade after Trump's latest outburst.
In fact, we have free trade agreements with 15 jurisdictions around the world, 2/3 of global trade. Now, some of those free trade agreements operate a little more predictably than others. No prize for guessing which ones.
Carney didn't take any questions from reporters about the potential 10% tariff, but he is expected to have a press conference on Monday during his final day in Malaysia, Jeff, before carrying on to his second Asian stop, Singapore.
All right, Mackenzie Gray in Kuala Lumpur. Thanks, Mac. In other news from the ASEAN Summit, American and Chinese officials say they're close to striking a trade deal between the world's two largest economies. They've agreed on a framework ahead of a meeting between President Trump and his Chinese counterpart, Xi Jinping, set for Thursday in South Korea. The agreement covers tariffs, agriculture products, and export controls on rare earth minerals. Canadian officials say they're hoping the Prime Minister will also meet the Chinese president, but so far no meeting has been scheduled. And one final note from the sidelines of that summit, Donald Trump presided over the expansion of a ceasefire deal between Thailand and Cambodia. Thailand will release prisoners in exchange for the withdrawal of Cambodian artillery. Both nations engaged in days of border skirmishes earlier this year until Trump reportedly threatened to impose new tariffs on both nations unless they agreed to halt hostilities. Thousands of people in Jamaica are now scrambling to safety as Hurricane Melissa prepares to hammer the Caribbean island in what is shaping up to be a rare and powerful Category 5 storm. Tourists are cutting their holidays short and taking off before airports close, with Melissa expected to make landfall as early as tomorrow. Many of Jamaica's 3 million citizens are now hunkering down. Hundreds of shelters have been activated across the island, but some are refusing to flee their homes and intending to ride out the storm.
We're not going to go anywhere. Just sitting down and watch everything, make sure everything is working good. Me and my friend, the Rasta. Yeah, just going to take it easy.
The slow-moving system has already killed at least 4 people in Haiti and the Dominican Republic and produced winds of more than 200 kilometers an hour. Some areas could see over 100 centimeters of rain. The forecasters warn that there will be days of catastrophic flooding and landslides ahead.
If you're watching from Jamaica, conditions are going to go downhill rapidly through the day today. You need to just be wherever you're going to be and be ready to ride this out for several days.
Melissa is also expected to hit parts of Cuba by late Tuesday before moving to the Bahamas later this week. French police have arrested 2 suspects in connection with a brazen daylight heist at the Louvre, stealing tens of millions of dollars in jewelry from the prestigious museum. One of the suspects was reportedly caught as he was trying to leave the country. But as Candice Cole reports, the hunt for suspects and the stolen crown jewels may not be over yet.
2 men who allegedly took part in the daring daylight break-in at the world-famous Louvre last week have now been arrested, according to Paris prosecutor Laure Becue. According to French paper Le Parisien, the 2 men are in their 30s from Seine-Saint-Denis, a suburb of Paris. One of them was apprehended at the airport en route to Algeria. In a post on X, France's Interior Minister congratulated investigators while urging the public to respect the confidentiality of the case as the investigation continues. Thieves got away with an estimated $102 million worth of Napoleon-era jewels, including a sapphire jewelry set and Empress Eugenie's brooch, during the minutes-long break-in to the Louvre's Apollo Gallery last Sunday. Since then, the site has become a tourist attraction of its own.
We just came from Germany to see it here because we also got kind of inspired, so we plan our heist for the next year.
It'd be nice to find a few diamonds that they may have missed or dropped on the way out.
One such item was Empress Eugenie's crown, found by this security guard after the break-in.
J'étais très fier, en fait, que
He says finding the crown was a proud moment, as he's sure the thieves dropped it in a panic when they saw security rushing the scene. The heist has gained international intrigue and fascination. Actor George Clooney joked it should be included in the upcoming Ocean's 14 movie.
I think you got to put me in, like, CGI me into that basket coming out of the Louvre. I think you should do that.
But for French authorities, it's no laughing matter. In her statement, Becue chastised the, quote, hasty disclosure of information about the ongoing case, adding that it hinders the search for the missing jewels and all the perpetrators. Candice Cole, Global News, Washington.
For the second straight night, Russia launched a deadly attack on Ukraine's capital, killing at least 3 people. At least 29 others were hurt, including 7 children. Ukrainian authorities say Moscow is stepping up attacks on energy infrastructure ahead of the winter. President Volodymyr Zelensky renewed calls for Western air defense systems. Also today, after years in development, the Russian president announced his country has successfully tested a groundbreaking new nuclear-powered cruise missile that spent 15 hours in the air. Vladimir Putin claims the missile can pierce through any defense system. Well, turning to Gaza now, where Hamas says it is expanding its search for the remains of the missing hostages. The announcement comes a day after Egypt and the Red Cross deployed experts and equipment to help retrieve the bodies. Hamas is required to return the remains of all hostages as part of the ceasefire deal. The militant group says they've struggled to find the final 13 bodies because of widespread destruction caused by Israeli bombs. Meanwhile, in Israel, 4 more hostages were released from hospital and returned home to their loved ones today. All 20 surviving hostages have now been treated and released, and the hospital unit that was set up for the hostages is now closed. The Alberta teachers' strike has reached a consequential crossroads. Tomorrow, the province is expected to roll out legislation to end the 3-week strike. More than 700,000 students have been out of school, and teachers have gone without pay since walking off the job on October 6th. As Heather Yourex-West explains, even if back-to-work legislation is passed, it's still unclear if and when classes will resume.
Heading into Halloween week, it's the looming showdown between the province and Alberta and its teachers that are giving parents and students the biggest scare. What do you think about back-to-work legislation coming?
I'm opposed to that. No, I don't think that's fair.
Not a huge fan when that's like a solution to a strike.
But the province says back-to-work legislation is coming Monday, meaning by midweek, teachers who have been off the job since October 6th could be forced back to class.
If the teachers decide to comply with that legislation, they could be in classrooms as early as Wednesday or Thursday, because it would happen. That would happen very quickly. If they choose not to comply and stay out on strike, then we just have giant question marks.
The Alberta Teachers Association is waiting to see details of the back-to-work legislation before formulating a response.
We've heard through the grapevine that the government is considering using the notwithstanding clause.
Gil McGowan represents the Alberta Federation of Labour, as well as a new coalition of unions in Alberta called Common Front. On Friday, the alliance issued a letter to the Premier asking that any back-to-work legislation not invoke this charter clause that essentially allows governments to pass laws even if they override rights protected by Canada's Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
The use of the notwithstanding clause in the context of collective bargaining would be unprecedented. We would have no choice but to mobilize an unprecedented response.
What that response would look like, the coalition doesn't yet know. But speaking on her Chorus Radio call-in show over the weekend, Premier Danielle Smith did not rule out invoking the clause.
You get to a point where we have to balance things. We have to make sure that we're balancing the rights of taxpayers, balancing the rights of parents, and balancing the rights of students. And we're at a point now where if they don't voluntarily agree with us to return to work and do that kind of mediation, we're just going to have them back.
The Alberta government plans to fast-track its back-to-work legislation by only allowing 1 hour of debate through each phase. The education minister says its priority is to get kids back into classrooms as soon as possible as this teacher strike enters its 4th week. Jeff?
Heather Yourex-West in Calgary. Thanks, Heather. And turning to another labor dispute in BC, and news of a breakthrough in an 8-week-long strike involving 34,000 government workers. The Provincial Employees Union says mediators helped to strike a tentative deal that includes a wage increase of 3% per year over 4 years. The province's liquor stores, student loan programs, and correctional services were among the sectors affected by the strike. The union expects it will take another week for workers to ratify the deal. A threat to private property coming up. Some BC residents are told they may have to move off Aboriginal land. A lawyer for the Cowichan tribes responds next. A lawyer for the Cowichan tribes is trying to set the record straight after a landmark BC Supreme Court ruling raised questions about private property ownership. The ruling granted the nations a parcel of land in the city of Richmond. And last week, a letter from the city surfaced announcing a public meeting to discuss what the ruling could mean for about 150 property owners in Richmond. Travis Prasad explains.
Uncertainty is growing among some Richmond homeowners after the city sent out this letter.
We don't want to be moving anywhere. We don't want to be giving up this property.
In August, the BC Supreme Court granted the Cowichan Aboriginal title to 7.5 square kilometers of land in Richmond, where it once held a summer fishing village. The city now warning the case could threaten the validity of private property ownership.
Will anybody want to ever buy a property that is being so affected? Could you get a mortgage and secure that mortgage?
But one of the lawyers for Cowichan tribes calls that an overstatement.
A lot of the remarks that are being made about the case are inflammatory.
David Rosenberg says the nation has no intention of taking anyone's private property.
The sky is not falling. The Cowichan Nation is very respectful and patient and is not wanting to interfere with private property ownership on these lands. And it was a last resort for them to go to court and recover these lands in the face of the intransigent positions taken by the Crown over the last 150 years.
The landmark ruling took more than a decade to reach. Legal experts are split on what it means for future title cases across BC. Critics say the provincial government has failed to provide direction, putting landowners around the province at risk.
There is a provincial government that we elect to look out for the public interest, and we're really seeing an inability or an unwillingness to do that.
The ruling directs the Crown to determine how to settle ownership where current legal titles overlap with Cowichan's newly recognized title.
Some resolution that hopefully will take into account the protection of the private property of the landowners.
The city, province, and Musqueam Band plan to appeal the decision.
We want the court to understand all of the things that are at play here. The nation's rights, the concerns around the property owners.
A public information session will be held at Richmond City Hall on Tuesday. Travis Prasad, Global News.
One of Canada's leading war historians has died.
We usually focus on what happens in times of war or on the battlefield. This is an opportunity to explore the legacies of war through veterans.
That is Tim Cook, the chief historian at the Canadian War Museum. The museum's CEO says, as Canada's preeminent military historian, Tim Cook's contributions to the museum since 2002 have been enormous. He curated several major exhibitions and led multiple updates to the museum's galleries. He also published 19 books and dozens of scholarly articles. The museum describes him as a passionate ambassador both for the museum and for Canadian military history, who has forever left his own mark on history. Cook was 54 years old. Still ahead, a solution in sight, the tiny microchip that could help patients with macular degeneration. A new medical procedure could help people with age-related macular degeneration regain aspects of their sight. Eye specialists say it's highly encouraging and that patients currently have few options. Catherine Ward reports on the potentially life-changing breakthrough.
An ultra-thin microchip could be the key to unlocking new possibilities for restoring sight for people living with dry age-related macular degeneration.
It's really exciting to have this first positive device and positive results.
The procedure is part of a European clinical trial which started in 2020. 38 patients across 5 different countries have had the small microchip inserted under the center of the participant's retina. The patient then uses augmented reality glasses containing a video camera which is connected to a computer.
The camera will look at images, it will transfer that image into infrared light, which will activate the electrode. So if you're not wearing those glasses, your vision won't improve. So you need both the glasses as well as the device for it to work.
This trial patient describes being able to see light and lines when she got fitted for the device back in 2022.
I'm happy now that it's working and that it'll help other people.
Dry AMD involves the slow deterioration of the cells of the macula over the course of many years.
There's about 2.5 million Canadians who have age-related macular degeneration.
People stop being able to see mostly in the center of their vision.
They can still see things like you'd see at the corner of your eye, but it can be severely debilitating, and it's actually the #1 cause of blindness over the age of 50.
Liz Tully lives with dry AMD. She says even small improvements in sight can mean a lot.
It can make a huge difference because we are still living our lives. And to be able to have even small successes in that area so we can hang on to more of our independence, be able to do more at the way we used to do, that is all really important.
In a written statement, one of the sites involved in the trial said people were able to read letters, numbers, and words through an eye that had lost its sight.
It can't restore exactly the way a normal person would see, but it's giving the patient an ability to discern objects, to read, to do all the things that they would want to do.
Catherine Ward, Global News, Toronto.
Up next, the Jays fly south for Game 3. The lessons learned from last night's disappointing outing. The Toronto Blue Jays are taking the day to regroup. After jumping out to an early lead in the World Series, the Jays were shut down by a red-hot pitcher on Saturday night. Lexi Benedict has the reaction and anticipation ahead of Game 3.
After a split here at home, the Toronto Blue Jays are hoping to get momentum back on their side in LA. For fans, it's already been a roller coaster of a World Series.
Go! Let's go!
The highs after an 11-4 blowout win in Game 1, and now the lows of Saturday's Game 2 loss.
I know it was a hard loss, but what are you going to do? We were down 2-0. We're going to come back.
The Dodgers taking a 1-0 lead in the first, and Alejandro Kirk managing to tie up the score in the fourth. But things unraveled in the seventh, with the Dodgers hitting back-to-back home runs. While the Jays' bats were silenced by Dodgers ace Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who pitched a complete game. The final score, 5-1 Dodgers. With the series now tied at 1-1, the Jays are looking to bounce back in LA with Game 3 set for Monday.
Every game is different, right? So you never really discount anything, you know what I mean? And who knows what's going to happen on Game 3, you know what I mean? It's baseball, and you got to kind of react in real time.
Fans are also feeling confident this team has what it takes to turn things around.
So excited.
It's been unreal.
We were able to go yesterday to the game, so, I mean, even though they lost, still historic,
incredible
unreal
experience.
Yeah. And they're not shy about representing their team, waiting in long lines outside the Rogers Centre to snag the latest Jays merch.
It's so awesome seeing the city come together, and I just wanted something to kind of commemorate this moment. You never know when it's going to happen again.
Trying to come early in the morning, but everybody beat me to it.
And even with the team in LA, you can still catch all of the action down here in Toronto at the Rogers Centre. The team is hosting watch parties for Games 3 and 4. And unsurprisingly, they're sold out as the whole country backs the boys in blue. Lexi Benedict, Global News, Toronto.
And that is Global National for this Sunday night. I'm Jeff Semple. Tonight's Your Canada showcases Cross Hill, Ontario, Fox Creek, Alberta, and the Clock Tower in Montreal. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.